A voice, once mortal and now carried across the span of centuries, speaks of what is absent. Not the heroes proclaimed, not the banners raised above conquered worlds, but of the gaps between the words, the places in the chronicles where ink is withheld. In those voids, the Imperium hides its most perilous truths. For there are fleets whose names are spoken only in council chambers sealed by oath, and whose banners never appear in the great triumphal processions. The record remembers their departure, but their return is never sung. The Imperium at the dawn of the Indomitus Crusade trembled as if caught between inhalation and exhalation. Countless systems burned, yet the throne decreed advance. Entire segments of space became a theatre for faith made manifest, each fleet a sermon written in fire across the stars. And yet, even within this holy crusade, there were commands that bore no heraldry, no invocation of triumph. Orders given as if whispered, passing from one gauntleted hand to another, until even those who delivered them could not recall their source. What weight does such a mission carry? To stand amid the thunder of war and perceive an absence more profound than the din of battle, this is a truth few can endure. Some remembered seeing ships muster at void harbours, thousands of keels aligned in patient ranks, and yet when the rosters were checked, entire lines were missing. Others swore that whole armadas moved through the warp under coverings of secrecy, their lights smothered, their machine spirits bound to silence. Was it trick of memory, or the hand of decree erasing recollection itself? Worlds that saw them depart never spoke again. Astropaths who traced their passage found their song suddenly muted. The warp carried no echo of their hymns. Even those who survived by chance, the dock workers, the minor officers, the nameless ratings, found their testimonies seized, their tongues compelled into stillness by edict. And so, what remains to us is absence. A stillness that deepens with every attempt to pierce it. In the absence of their record lies a weight greater than the triumphs that blaze in open history. For the Imperium itself remembers them only as an emptiness, and it is the nature of emptiness to demand explanation. Where did they go? Who ordered their silence? Why does the very memory of their muster burn away like parchment pressed too close to the flame? The galaxy does not forget easily. Its ruins whisper. Its stars echo with the passing of fleets long dead. In every void port where their shadows lingered, in every shrine where their banners should have hung, the question persists like a wound that cannot heal. And so we begin with absence, not with glory nor with death, but with the gulf that swallows names, the muteness that weighs heavier than any triumph. In that muteness lies the threshold. Step across, and the silent seventh awaits. The memory of the Indomitus Crusade is a tapestry woven from desperate beginnings, each thread pulled taut by Robert Guilliman's hand as he laboured to knit the wounded Imperium into an engine of reconquest. The galaxy had fractured, the cicatrix maledictum ripping through reality like a wound across the breast of creation, dividing the faithful from the throne's light. Out of this sundering, the Primarch raised the fleets of the Indomitus, titanic musters of steel and spirit that carried the banners of mankind into the void. Each crusade fleet was more than an army. It was an ecosystem of faith and war. Where the Adeptus Astartes stood as the mailed fist, the Astra Militarum bled their billions across countless fronts. Naval armadas stretched into horizons of iron, their void ships bristling with weaponry drawn from forgotten forges. The Mechanicus grafted their red cloaks across these fleets, binding their mysteries to the cause, while the Ministorum thundered sermons to keep despair at bay. Even the Inquisition, ever secretive, declared its agents embedded, ensuring heresy would find no safe refuge in the shadow of holy war. Thus were the Crusade fleets born, Primus, Secundus, Tertius, and onward, each named in sequence, each bearing its ordained path. Their goals were mapped in flame and strategy, charted not simply by the need to liberate, but by Guilliman's vision to restore arteries of communication, to secure cardinal worlds, and to blunt the claw of alien and heretic alike. Records of their triumphs flood the archives. The reclamation of Ardium, the bloody defense of Dantalia, the reinforcement of Macragge's outer marches, all are written in grand testimony. Yet alongside these banners of triumph, one number remained cloaked. The 7th. In every record of fleet disposition, it lingers as a hesitation. Logisters gloss past it, admirals omit it, preachers falter when their tongues pass over the litany. Some archives record its existence with a single line. Septimus, deployed under special directive. No further detail, no roster of chapters assigned, no tally of guardsmen or tonnage of ships. Where others are paraded as instruments of imperial destiny, the 7th is absent, recorded as though behind a veil. Why? Guilliman, ever the architect, never committed anything without cause. The division of the Crusade into fleets was an act of order against chaos, a means to bring clarity to a galaxy collapsing into confusion. For one to be concealed speaks of a purpose beyond the common campaigns of liberation. Perhaps Septimus was given a mission that demanded its anonymity. Perhaps its very survival depended on secrecy so absolute that its name could not echo beyond the vaulted halls of command. Still, hints persist in scattered testimonies. Dockworkers of Call's Forge arcs spoke of vessels blackened and warded with symbols alien to common naval iconography. Astropaths whispered of harmonies cut short, of transmissions locked within labyrinthine encryptions that not even the choirs of terror could fully untangle. Some Admiralty scribes swore that Guilliman himself forbade discussion of the 7th Fleet beyond a circle of custodians and high lords. And so the muster of fire and faith becomes not only a chronicle of preparation, but of a mission. For while billions marched and sang hymns to victory, one fleet moved through the shadows of the mustering fields, unseen yet present, accounted for only in absence. Their formation was never proclaimed from balconies or broadcast across the stars. They sailed not beneath triumphal horizons, but beneath a silence drawn tight by decree. What were they prepared for? What enemy awaited them that the Imperium dared not name? In the endless litany of war, even questions have their weight, and the 7th Fleet's unanswered summons presses upon every page like the faint impression of a blade hidden beneath parchment. The story of their fate does not yet emerge. All that may be spoken here is that they departed, that their keels split the void, and that they were never seen again in the triumphal annals. Absence ripples. It does not remain still. The void carries echoes of what departs, and when a fleet as vast as Septimus passes beyond the veil, the galaxy itself seems to stir with unease. What follows is not certainty, but a scattering of fragments, hints strewn like broken glass across the annals of the Indomitus era. Each fragment is a wound in the record, and from these wounds arise questions that haunt strategium halls and cloisters alike. Some place their disappearance within the currents of the warp. The Indomitus Crusade advanced in an age when the cicatrix maledictum howled with unparalleled fury, its storms devouring entire sectors without warning. Countless ships were lost to sudden vortices, their hulls ground into nothingness, their crews scattered as offerings to the entities that linger beyond reason. The 7th Fleet may have been consumed in such a rift. Yet this explanation falters. When fleets vanish to the warp, traces remain. Astropathic screams, echoes in the Astronomicon, testimonies of ships limping back with tales of madness. For Septimus, there are none. Their absence is too complete. Others whisper of Necron intervention. The pariah nexus gnawed at imperial strength, even as Guilliman's crusade pressed outward. Worlds fell to eerie muteness, where all psychic emanation ceased, as though the very soul of a system had been harvested. What better explanation for a fleet remembered only by omission than that it crossed into such a void? If Septimus encountered the Necron pylons, their fate may have been to pass from memory itself, erased not by decree but by alien science older than humanity's first fire. There are darker suggestions. That inquisitorial mandate shackled the fleet's history, their mission bound in secrets so profound that no record could be permitted. Some claim Septimus bore a weapon, the last fruits of Call's inscrutable experiments, or a relic dredged from vaults beneath Luna itself, and that their charge was to deliver it into the abyss. If they failed, then silence would be mercy. If they succeeded, then secrecy would preserve the Imperium from knowledge it must not hold. Yet there are stranger rumours still. That Septimus never faltered, never perished, but was repurposed, turned into a blade aimed not at xenos frontiers, but at hidden enemies within the Imperium itself. A ghost fleet, hunting threats too perilous to acknowledge, waging wars that can never be spoken. Entire worlds might have burned in such shadow campaigns, their deaths attributed to chaos or alien menace, while in truth, the Seventh Fleet scoured them for reasons sealed away in the vaults of the Senatorum. Theories spiral outward, each one darker than the last. Did they vanish into the labyrinth of the Blackstone fortresses, never to return? Were they redirected against an awakening tomb world? Their silence enforced because none must know how close doom lay? Or were they scattered deliberately, broken into shards, their forces siphoned to reinforce campaigns where the Imperium could not admit weakness? Every possibility testifies to the same truth. Fleet Septimus has become myth by design. The absence of testimony is the strongest evidence of intent. In the Imperium, where propaganda raises even defeats into hymns of valor, only that which is most terrible or most secret is swallowed into absolute quiet. And so, the vanishing of the Silent Seventh endures, not as an accident, not as a tragedy, but as a shadow cast deliberately across the chronicles of mankind. The Imperium does not forget. Even when names are struck from rolls and banners consumed in fire, the echo of omission clings. The Silent Seventh endures in that echo, a void-shaped memory that refuses to die. To speak of their purpose is to trespass into speculation, for no proclamation was ever given. Yet the shape of what was denied casts long shadows. Within those shadows, one glimpses the outlines of possibility. Consider Guilliman himself. The Primarch was no reckless commander, but a legislator of war whose mind measured each move with precision. He did not squander resources, nor did he raise fleets without design. If Septimus sailed veiled in secrecy, it was because its charge lay outside the grasp of common campaigns. What foe was so dire it demanded not glory but silence? What task required the obedience of entire armies, yet left no trace in the annals of victory? Some say their mission was to carry fire into the pariah nexus, to test the mettle of imperial will against the Necron abominations that consume both flesh and soul. Others believe they pursued a shard of chaos itself, some demon prince whose defeat must never be sung, lest it give hope to the damned. A more dreadful notion claims that Septimus was dispatched not against alien or heretic, but to scour imperial worlds themselves, worlds too compromised, too contaminated, to be allowed remembrance. The Silent Seventh, some whisper, was silent because it silenced others. And yet, what if their purpose was not destruction, but preservation? If they bore a relic of the dark age of technology, if they escorted some ark whose cargo was destined for terror alone, then secrecy would have been armor stronger than void shields. Perhaps they succeeded, their duty fulfilled, and for that very reason their names erased, to guard the Imperium not only from enemies without, but from temptation within. Speculation grows ever more fevered, because certainty cannot be found. The archives are sealed, the astropathic traces severed, the veterans who might have spoken silenced by oath or by death. The more one searches, the heavier the silence becomes, pressing upon the mind like the cold of interstellar void. To reflect on Septimus is to stand before a closed door that will not open, yet behind which one knows footsteps once passed. And in the end, this may be the truth most suited to the Imperium. Not all sacrifices are meant to be remembered. Some battles are fought only so that others may never know they were necessary. If Septimus vanished, it was not failure. It was obedience carried to the final extreme. They became their secrecy. They became their absence. They became the unspoken breath between victories. The Imperium survives because of such shadows. Fleets that fight without laurels, regiments erased before their banners are unfurled, saints whose names are struck from every litany. All of these form the foundation upon which the Emperor's realm endures. Septimus belongs among them, a fleet without testimony, yet whose silence may have spared 1,000 worlds. And so the tale concludes not with revelation, but with reverence. For even in mystery, their purpose was service. Even in absence, their weight remains. The Silent Seventh sailed into the abyss, and the abyss has not returned them. But the Imperium endures. That endurance is their testament.